Welcome to Daily Armor. Today I'm going to be in the book of John, chapter 10, looking at mostly verse 2 through 4, but I do challenge you to read verses 1 through 18, talking about the shepherd-sheep relationship. In the previous devotions about the names of Jesus, we did discuss the responsibilities of the shepherd. But today, as I am looking through the book of John and pulling out those verses that talk about who we are because of Christ, then the sheep is a good where we can kind of understand our relationship and how it exists with Jesus. Him being the shepherd. Him being not just a good shepherd, but the great shepherd, the perfect shepherd, and us being sheep, and how that we are our nature and some things that are healthy for us, some things that maybe are not so healthy for us, and how that maybe as we understand a little bit more about who we are, then we'll understand a little bit more about how wonderful He is. So let's look at verses 2 through 4. I do thank you for those that have been praying for me since my mother passed away Sunday. And we've been having some bouts of sickness in our home. And I did not have a voice until yesterday, and it's still not 100%. So I want to get through this as much as I can if my voice will hang in there with me. But thank you for praying, and please continue to pray as her paperwork is taken a little while, and we need to get her transported to North Carolina and have a funeral. So just be in prayer for that. And as I am understanding more about me being a sheep, this is actually bringing me comfort. There's things outside my outside my ability, outside my capability, but it's also outside of my responsibility. And I put my trust in my shepherd. And so let's look at John chapter 10. I'm going to read verses 2 through 4 for the sake of time and for the sake that my voice probably is not going to let me finish. But verse number 2 says, "But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep." He that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. We know that Jesus is the door. We know Jesus is the way. He's the truth. He's the life. We've already talked about all that. He is our shepherd. He is the great shepherd. And as we are thinking about the shepherd, we are absolutely very similar to sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. Verse 4, "And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice." As I'm thinking about kind of some characteristics of sheep, and I just looked this up on Google, and under like an animal website that talks about sheep, to people who may be thinking about getting sheep. My son has sheep, and we enjoy and Mama really enjoyed watching the sheep from over here. We can see them out our front windows, and it's so fun to watch them. But they have, personality traits, and that we are very similar in some of those personality traits. It said on the website, it said sheep are social animals, and to try to prevent seclusion. So anytime that you are feeling this need to go be by yourself, to try to say, I don't want to be around people anymore, that's not actually healthy. We need one another. And now I'm not saying that you don't need a moment by yourself. I certainly need a moment by myself from time to time. The house is quiet this morning. Todd's at work. My mother is with Jesus. The baby hasn't got here yet. Nobody's in the home right now, but I'm not alone. I have been socializing with the Lord all morning, and I need that socialization with Him and that time alone with Him. But as I do, He's also letting me know that I need to be around others. I don't need to try to do things on my own. I don't need to try to take too much on myself. That it's that community and that bonding that we have with one another that is going to be healthy. We are social. The sheep are and by nature, they're followers. And it said in here to lead them, to don't drive them like they're cattle. And we know the shepherd leads us and he guides us and he takes us where we need to go. Even if where we need to go is a little scary, it's a little different. He knows where to go find good pasture. He knows where the good water is. And so we rely on that shepherd to lead us. And that's why we're supposed to be led. And so we want to be careful to listen to his voice. They have good memories. This is something I didn't know about sheep. They have good memories. And it said on the website, it said that they need to be positive ones as much as possible. So in other words, if a shepherd or somebody that's caring for sheep and they have been through a dangerous situation, they may have to deal with, maybe there's been a storm, maybe there's been a tornado, a hurricane, a fire, or something that has upset the sheep and the flock. You're gonna have to be gentle and be patient, because they're not gonna forget that, and they're gonna have to have a little bit of help and a little bit of aid. And so as we are caring for one another, we need to realize that we need to be careful how we care for one another, and that when we harm one another, that it makes people not trust. It makes people want to go off into seclusion, and that we need one another, and we need to be careful about how we interact with one another, and be patient when somebody's went through a traumatic experience. They may have a hard time being put in that same kind of scenario. Maybe the flock has been fine, but now when a bad thunderstorm pops up or something happens, maybe the flock needs that little extra nourishing. And that's something that we as sheep, sometimes we have to be patient with ourselves, and we have to be patient with one another. And we know God himself, that Jesus himself being the shepherd, knows how to help us through those things. It said there was all kinds of different breeds. There was, all kinds, and I'm like, oh, that's so like us. There's so many different kinds and colors and heights and sizes. And I mean, we're just a grand array that God has made us all different. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. They have a wide range of vision. And as we, process things, I think we don't have full vision. And the sheep don't have full vision. They can't see all the way around their head, but we know the shepherd has full vision. He can see our past, our present, and into the future, and all of the way the pieces of the puzzle come together. It says that they can remember faces. They can remember faces in their flock. They can remember how to get through a maze. And so they have some memory. And they have strong bonds with their mother. And I thought how wonderful it was that today was the day that I'm supposed to do the sheep. And then I'm learning about the strong bond to their mother. And as it hurts, when we lose a loved one, we know that relationship with the mother is one of those most special relationships that we can have. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way we're designed. They have this way of knowing how to help self-soothe themselves. In other words, they go out in the flock, and there's certain plants that kind of make them feel better when maybe they're a little under the weather. And we know the great physician knows how to take us to those fields that's got that good healthy grass, and to feed us on those things that we need to feed us on. And I find that in his word. I find that I was already studying the book of John before this happened. I'd already even gotten down to all of the names that I was going to be using through the book of John. And as I was doing that, now I realized that God led me there before I even realized I was going to need this so much. And the book of John is a book of that really truly explains God's love. And as grief does, we need that extra love, and he knows how to give it. And he sent it. He had already sent it for me. It's available for me, and find great comfort in the book of John. They have different personality traits. Some are go-getters, some are a little more laid back. They go through things that we go through. They can get angry with one another. They can get bored. They can get fearful. They can be happy. When you're watching the sheep out front at my house, I mean, sometimes they're just leaping and jumping and acting crazy, and it's quite comical. And they need some space to play and to interact, and to stretch, to stretch their legs and interact with one another. And that socialization is very, very important. And as I think about sometimes I feel like I've been restricted, or sometimes I feel like that there's circumstances that are controlling me. I realize I'm the sheep, but I am very cared for by the shepherd. And it's his responsibility. These things that I'm kind of in a standstill right this moment, as far as I know, nothing's moving forward just as of yet. But I know that at any moment, the shepherd knows how to open those doors. And he knows where I need to be, when I need to be there, and all of the things that take place in that. And I'm finding great comfort in that, and great and feeling very cared for in that. And so as we think about being sheep, and then we feel vulnerable, we feel like we want to have it figured out. Sometimes we don't have to figure it out. We just rely on the shepherd. He's the great shepherd, and we're his sheep. And I want you to notice here in verse number 2, it says, "He that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep." When we enter in through the door of Jesus Christ, we are his sheep. I want you to look at verse number 3. "To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice." They hear his voice. The first time I heard his voice was the night that he convicted me that I was lost and needed to be saved. And he has been speaking to me ever since. "And he calleth his own sheep by name." He calls me by name. He knows my name. I know him, and he knows me. "And leadeth them out." He's leading me. He's been leading me and guiding me and directing me. And look at when he's leading us. Look at verse number 4. "And when he putteth forth his own sheep," when he's saying, "I'm putting you out there. You're going out there." When he's saying, "I'm sending you out there. I'm leading you out there. We're going somewhere. You're not just going to stay in the sheepfold. You got to get out. You got to find that. You got to get that good grass. I'm going to take you to the still waters and all that in between." He says, "He goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice." He's not driving us out there. He's leading us out there. And that's given me great comfort. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon.